Hey, what's up guys? Nader here with this kind of unfiltered video on the history of pre-workouts as well as what I've been through in the past nearly 20 years now of using pre-workouts. Why am I making this video? Today is my birthday and I've decided to reflect on all the bad decisions I've made in the past starting out as a beginner and looking at all the stuff that's been going on with pre-workouts recently as well as back when I was first starting. So I've used all kinds of supplements, but pre-workouts always had this impression on me. You know, you take this thing, it gets you in this mode, and you start to feel like, I don't know if you watched Dragon Ball Z, but you feel like you're going through a stage where you're transforming into the next level Super Saiyan. But in other words, you're turning into this superhuman, maximizing your focus and energy. Of course, not every experience was the same, and a lot of it was just wasted money down the drain. So let's just start with the history of pre-workouts. So coffee in itself is a pre-workout. Coffee is caffeine, and it's been consumed by humans for as long as possible, right? For thousands of years, caffeine has always been a substance used to increase focus and energy. And then, you know, pre-workouts are relatively new. They're a new thing for humans. When I say humans, I mean us, me and you. I'm human too. I'm not a lizard.
I'm gonna have to go with no on that. I am not a lizard.
But in the past, like 50, 40 years now, pre-workouts have been around. And one of the most hardcore ones that was starting out was Ultimate Orange. Now, I didn't use this one. I actually didn't use pre-workouts until like 2006. But Ultimate Orange was the ultimate red flag for pre-workouts. If there was a red flag for pre-workouts, Ultimate Orange would be like right on it, because the FDA was targeting this pre-workout for having that strong ephedrine, which was a stimulant that was super strong for fat loss. It's still available today, but it's not in pre-workouts like it was back then. Although who knows what pre-workouts use these days. You never know what you get until you get it. But Ultimate Orange was ultimately the starting point for stim junkies back then. Now, some of you may have experienced that. If you have, let me know how that was. I'd be interested to hear. I know there's a new version available today, but fast forward a couple years, a couple companies was ruling the landscape of pre-workouts, going from Gaspari Nutrition to VPX. These two companies were like the major ones, and then there was a couple of others that were smaller, but they were still making it like a stamp or dent in the landscape of pre-workouts. Now, Gaspari had a pre-workout called Super Pump. And if you ever use this one, you would probably know the name Super Dump, because this made you go dump in the bathroom for a while. This was like a pre-workout with magnesium, and magnesium really stimulates that stomach movement when it comes to the bowel movement. And with VPX, back then there was Super Pump. Sorry, not Super Pump. NO Shotgun. That's still available today, but back then it was even better than now. I don't know if it has something that wasn't on the label. And there was still companies using ingredients that were not on the label, but it was an incredible experience as well. NO Shotgun had whey protein isolate, but that was hydrolyzed, so you could consume it and then work out with like 20 minutes later. It'd be digested so quickly. You don't really see that often in pre-workouts. The ingredients back then were not similar today. Like the formulas that we're seeing today were a little bit different than what we saw back then. Back then, there was a lot more experimental formulas going around. I guess because companies didn't really know what consumers wanted, nor did they know what ingredients really worked. They don't have the research that we have today with all the studies that's piling up over the years. And for me, my first pre-workout was actually beta-alanine. I used this supplement. I forget the name, but it was just pure beta-alanine. That was like my first official pre-workout. I literally felt like there was, when you take beta-alanine, you feel the tingles, and it felt like I was transforming myself when I was taking it, even though it had no caffeine. And back then, I didn't consume caffeine until I had a real pre-workout. And I remember it came with a sample of a pre-workout with caffeine, and that was NO Explode. That one was super popular among users, but that one was also incredible. I don't know what made it different that makes it worse today, because today it's still available. NO Explode is still available, but it's not as good as it was back then. Could it be because they had more ingredients that were not on the label? It was a wild, wild west, as it is today, because there's still kind of pre-workouts that still use ingredients that's not on the label. So that was my real first pre-workout. And of course, back then, I had no idea what to look for. All those pre-workouts always had prop blends. They would hide their dosages in these blends that were sometimes huge. And it was nice because some pre-workouts use testosterone boosting ingredients like Bull Knox. I don't know if you use that one, but that one was incredible for like aggressive energy and focus. And I don't know what it was, if it was my tolerance that was lower back then, but these kind of pre-workouts always made a good impression on me, where I would feel like I'm more aggressive in the gym. But that could be also because of, my hormones that was going up and down back then as a younger adult. It's easier to be aggressive when you're taking these kind of pre-workouts, so it could be a placebo effect. And then fast forward a couple more years, we have like the ultimate pre-workout that was incredible. It was sold on Amazon, bodybuilding.com, and that was, as you probably heard of, Driven Sports Craze.
We took this morning. Craze.
Yeah, it's a good pre-workout.
I was amped up the whole time, man. I kind of overdid it there on that day.
This one was incredible. There's no pre-workout like it. Even today, the euphoria was unmatched because it had a stimulant that wasn't on the label. And back then, I actually made a mistake of combining it with another pre-workout, because with Craze, I couldn't feel it for like an hour. I drank it, waited an hour, and I couldn't feel anything. So I was like, all right, I'll take this other pre-workout, which was called Assault, which was by Muscle Farm. And that was my biggest mistake, because after about half an hour, like an hour and a half after taking Craze, and then half an hour after taking Assault, I was fighting for dear life. I was hanging on to the edge, and I wasn't even exercising. But any movement I did, it was like, I could feel it. I could feel the pounding. I could feel my heart trying to go out my chest, and it was an intense experience. Never again, though. That was a big lesson for me, was to take a pre-workout and to wait a couple hours, or take half a serving and see how it is, and literally assess my tolerance. But yeah, a lot of pre-workouts came and went throughout the time. There was a time when Mesomorph was around.
Pow! What's up, mother? It's me, Ed, here from Blackstone Labs Review in New Jersey. Since I took this one today, what happens is it's a clean focus.
And that was around 2014 when it was around again. I think it may have disappeared for a while, and let's not forget Jacked back in 2010. I almost missed that one with DMAA. And Mesomorph also was one of the best DMAA pre-workouts. And then, around 2017, FDA comes crashing down on these companies, and they start rating these companies. High-tech pharmaceuticals was one of the big ones. They were making all kinds of underground pre-workouts that was not unlike anything that we see today, really. And, well, we do see them, but they were putting it in every formula, and there was no question about it whether it was on the formula or in the formula or not. A lot of pre-workouts these days, you see that ingredient and you wonder, that stimulant, and you wonder like if it's even there. And then we hear the reviews, and you start to hear mixed reviews where they're like, okay, it's in there, not in there. And then you have these other pre-workouts that come in, and then they claim this one ingredient which isn't in there at all, or at least that's what it feels like. And it starts to feel like this whole other research chemical experience that's totally unrelated to the formula. So it's a super sketchy, let's say underground stim junkie type of pre-workouts, where you look at these formulas, they're hardcore, but then the other ingredients that's not on the label, it turns it into another hard hitting experience. So it's completely a hit or miss. And so there is a lot to be learned these days. FDA is not checking these ingredients. They are waiting on standby, basically. In the US, these pre-workouts come out. If there are a lot of adverse reports, FDA comes in and they're like, hey, there's something wrong with this pre-workout, and we keep hearing of complaints. Then they go after the company. They don't check the shelves, or they don't check the formulas before they hit the shelves. And that's one of the biggest lessons, is check the reviews, and listen to what other people say about it. And unfortunately, you are a guinea pig, because sometimes these formulas, they do like a switch and bait. Some, like the first batch is super good, they send it out to reviewers, or they send it out to everyone. Everyone says it's good, and then fast forward a couple of weeks later, and it's a totally different experience with a whole different batch. What happens, right? It's a totally wild west experience. So when you're looking for proven formulas, then you would need to look at companies that use third-party testing, which are not existent for the Stim Junkie pre-workouts that use exotic stimulants. You will not see third-party tests on those formulas, because I think they don't do that because then they would be admitting to the FDA, hey, there's an ingredient that's not supposed to be on the label, and it's there. So a lot to be learned, and so look for the reviews, watch out for other people, what they say, and always assess your tolerance. I think those are the biggest lessons you would have to take when it comes to experimenting with these kind of pre-workouts. But ultimately, it's safer to use something that's safe, like something that's proven to work, that has ingredients that's proven to improve performance without anything crazy. That way you can have something sustainable. So you also don't know what happens in the long run when it comes to the exotic stimulants, whether it's the DMs or it's the research chemicals. Because you start to mess up your neurotransmitters, and then when you stop taking this kind of pre-workout or you abuse it, you kind of mess up the chemicals in your brain, and some people are more susceptible, more vulnerable to these kind of effects, depending on their history and family history of mental issues. So be careful out there, and we can only be as honest as we can be, but you never know with these companies and these pre-workouts that come and go. So, hey, let me know if you had any good or bad experiences with any pre-workouts. I would be interested to hear what you think, and also, what do you think of this kind of video? Are you interested in this kind of video? Should I do more of this? And I'm happy to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.